What's up, y'all? Thank you so much for tuning in. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you guys how to make these really easy baby bonnets. Yeah, so let's get started. So first, here's my fabric, and what you want to do is make sure that there are 2 folds. Okay, a fold on this edge here and one on the bottom edge, and you want to measure out your fabric from this corner. So I made a pattern, y'all. This is just a piece of copy paper that I have pre-measured so that I don't have to measure it every single time, and I'm making this one for Journey. So I'm just going to place my pattern right here. But if you don't have a pattern or you don't feel like making a pattern, what you do is you just go right to the corner and you measure out the number of inches you want your bonnet. So since I'm making this for a little bitty girl, I'm only measuring out 9 inches. So I'm going to do 9 inches. But if you're doing an adult, I suggest doing 11 or 12 inches. And what you do is you just mark it, turn your fabric wrong side out and mark it with like some fabric chalk or whatever you have, or you can pin it all the way around and then cut around the pins. I hope that makes sense. But for me, it's just easier to just measure some paper from the corner and just pin it to my fabric and then cut around the pattern. And also, if you're thinking about starting a business or selling these on the side or whatever, because people really love them, I suggest using a pattern. That way it's the same size every time, and you know, create a sizing chart. I will have my sizing chart in the description box to help anyone who, you know, you want to make these for other people or for family or whatever. So once you open it up, now you can see I have a perfect circle. Okay, so I'm gonna move this to the side and I'm gonna do the same exact thing with my satin fabric. My 2 circles, and I'm going to press right sides together. So you want to do right sides together. That's very important. Okay, and now I'm going to pin all the way around these 2. I'm going to pin them together all the way around, and I'm going to leave about a 2-inch gap. So when I get ready to sew this, I'm going to sew it almost all the way around except for that 2-inch gap, and that's where we're gonna turn the bonnet right side out. I'm also, before I go over to the sewing machine, I'm gonna go ahead and cut out my fabric for my bow, and this is just a pre-measured 6 by 9 inch rectangle. Y'all, these bows are so easy, and you can use these bows for headbands, for, you know, just whatever. You can put them on dresses, shirts. I think they're so cute, and I always use 6 by 9. And that other little piece is 6 by 2.5, and I'm going to show you later in the video what we're going to be doing with that. Okay, so now I'm just gonna start sewing this around, and I'm sewing it as close to the edge as possible, but not so close that it can come apart easily. I hope that makes sense. So probably, I don't know, maybe 1/8 of an inch or maybe even 1/4 of an inch if you're worried about it. It's better to go further in than further out, because you don't want it coming apart. Even if you're just making it for yourself, you don't want to have to redo this process all over again. So pretty close to the edge, but not so close that it could come apart really easily. So I'm just gonna sew this all the way around until I get to that 2 to 3 inch gap, which, y'all, I almost sewed it up. I almost did, and I was about to be so mad. So I actually only have like a 1 inch gap, but I made it happen somehow anyway. So now once you get done sewing that, oh, and don't forget to back stitch. You always back stitch before you start your seam and at the end of your seam to keep it from coming loose. So now we're going to turn this bonnet inside out, pulling it through that small opening that you left open. See me just kind of tugging at the edges to make sure that everything is nice and neat and laying as flat as possible. And now I'm going to go over to my ironing board, and I'm going to press these two pieces together. Always iron on your cloth side, not the satin side, because satin does burn. So I never put heat on the satin side, just the fabric. And I'm going to press these together so that there's no wrinkles and it's nice and neat. And also it's going to make sewing, when I sew back around it, it's going to be really easy to do because everything is going to be nice and flat. So after I finish ironing my bonnet, now I'm going to make the encasing for my elastic. So my elastic, I believe, is 1/2 inch elastic. So you want to do your seam allowance according to what size elastic you're using. I like the small ones. That's just my favorite kind. But if you have a thicker one, you know, if you have a 1 inch thick elastic, then you want to do a little over 1 inch seam allowance when you're sewing around your bonnet. So I'm going to sew this all the way around. We're not going to leave any openings here because this is where our elastic is going to go. So we're going to sew all the way around. So now I'm coming back to the beginning of my stitch. So I'm going to stitch right over it, do a back stitch to make sure it doesn't come loose. Always do a back stitch. I'm going to say it one more time. You do a back stitch before when you're first starting your seam and after, and that's going to secure everything in. So here's how this is looking. I did a basic stitch also. I don't get too jazzy with it. I just need it to stay together, and you know, I'm not a seamstress, I'm a beginner, so I'm trying to make it as easy as possible. But now we're gonna go ahead and sew together our bow, and y'all are gonna be amazed at how easy it is to make this bow. So I folded it right sides together, and I'm gonna sew right down that edge there. So also with satin fabric, you're gonna see me take a lighter here and kind of burn this. Well, I'm not burning it. Well, yeah, I'm burning it because satin frays. So to prevent it from fraying, you just apply a little heat to it and it'll seal off those edges so that there's no fraying. And so now we're gonna turn this inside out, and I'm gonna fold it in half again, seams together, and I'm going to sew it again. See here, there's your little bow. Y'all see how easy that is? And so now I'm gonna sew this little piece here. This is gonna go in the center of our bow to give kind of that faux tied look. It's gonna look like I actually tied this bow together, which of course I didn't. So I already sewed that together right side to end, just like the other piece. And for this one, you want to turn it inside out. And because this piece is so tiny, it's really difficult to do. I probably could have done it if I didn't have these acrylic nails on, but since I can't do anything with these nails on, I went ahead and got a safety pin and I fished it through the hole of the fabric, and I'm gonna turn it right side out that way. Now I'm gonna measure out my elastic. So again, I'm making this for Journey. She's 3, so her head is pretty small. I think I measured out 16 inches. Another way to do this is to put the elastic around your child's head and just do it that way. And I usually cut it exact because it is gonna fit tight, because I'm gonna overlay the ends of my elastic. So, you know, just kind of, if you don't have, especially if you don't have a measuring tape, just get your elastic and put it around your child's head and then just cut right the size. That's a way to customize it for your child specifically. Again, though, I will have all of the sizes that I use, my sizing chart, in the description box to help you also. So how you feed your elastic through, you put a safety pin on one end and you stick it through the hole of where your elastic goes, that hole that we left open. You just stick it through and you fish it all the way around. And I always pin the other end to the bonnet as well, so that I don't fish the entire elastic through there and just waste a whole bunch of time, because you know the whole elastic is in there. So you want the end piece to be sticking out so that it gathers the way that you want it to. So now I've reached back where I started. So I'm going to take the safety pins out, and I am going to hot glue my elastics together. Now you can also sew this. You can do a zigzag stitch, especially if you have a wider piece of elastic. You could do a zigzag stitch to connect these. When I make them for other people, I'll put a stitch in it and kind of hot glue the ends just to ensure that it does not come apart. But the easiest way to do this is to just hot glue them together and it won't come apart. I've never had an elastic break, so I'm pretty confident that the glue will work. So now I'm just kind of stretching my bonnet, making it, you know, how I want it. Now for this opening, you could also go to the sewing machine and sew your opening closed. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to hot glue mine closed. And I'm not going to glue it to the elastic. I'm gluing the two fabrics together so that elastic, so that it gathers. Because if you glue the elastic to the fabric, it's going to be flat there and it won't gather, and it'll be obvious where your opening was when you sewed the bonnet together. So you want to hot glue the fabrics together, or you can sew them together using the sewing machine, or you can hand sew it as well. But this is what I'm doing. I'm going to glue it together. And if you are using glue and some of that glue kind of spills out, just pinch it off before it hardens to keep it nice and neat. And then you readjust your bonnet, and you cannot even tell where this began. You can't tell where the glue is, none of that. It should be very, very nice and neat. So next I am going to glue my bow on. Again, you can sew your bow on. I'm going to glue mine. And if you glue it and it does come off, I've never had a bow to come off, but if it does come off, you know, it's a really easy fix to put it back on. So where I glue it usually is kind of right where the right above where the elastic starts. That's usually where I glue it. But first we're going to put the bow together. So you want to squeeze the center of the bow, and we're going to add a little bit of glue, and I'm going to add my middle piece onto the center. And make sure you're paying attention to what you're doing, you know, so that both sides of the bow is pretty equal and they look pretty uniform. You don't want a lopsided bow. At least I don't. I don't know. Maybe you do, but I don't. I don't want a lopsided bow. So, and we're just gonna glue this all the way around. And you want to kind of glue it on all sides. Wherever it's touching the bow, you want to glue it down just to make sure it's nice and secure, because I don't know about your girls, but mine are they can tear stuff up. So I need this to be nice and secure. So we're just going to glue this closed, and I'm going to trim off any kind of excess fabric, and then we're going to attach it to our bonnet. So now I'm gonna attach my bow to the bonnet. I'm just gonna put a little bit of glue here and I'm gonna stick it right on, and I'm gonna glue all around it because we want this nice and secure. If you want it really secure, you can kind of hand stitch the end parts of the bow to the bonnet as well. I'm just gonna use glue because, like I said, it works for me. My girls have never taken a bow off of one. It's nice and secure, and they've had their bonnets for years now. So, and they've been through the washing machine and the dryer. I do not recommend putting it in the dryer though, y'all. Air dry your bonnets. I put mine in the dryer though, and it does just fine. But I don't know, satin can sometimes burn, so I suggest air drying it. Anyway, so here is the finished product, y'all. It's nice and simple. It looks neat, and it only took me probably about 30 minutes from start to finish. And here you have it. I'm just showing you you know, how neat and clean my seams are. And I'm a beginner. I'm not even a beginner. I'm a straight up amateur seamstress, and I was able to put this together. So if I can do it, anybody can. But as you can see, everything is pretty flawless, and yeah, it was really easy to do. So y'all let me know down in the comments if, you know, you're thinking about selling these yourself. Let me know. And if you have any questions, leave them in the comments. So anyway, but thank you so much for watching this video. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up and please subscribe. And until next time, be blessed.